Hi, Analisa 6 here with the Lady of Leisure and the Sober Curator to give you the 2023 July horoscope for the sign of Aries for Sun and Rising placements. June is over. What happened? It happened so fast. I'm very confused about what's going on with time these days. It just feels like I can't keep track of anything. I feel like my life is just one of those, what do they call it? Those, what is wrong with me? Those sand, you know, the things that you flip over that have sand in them. These are the days of our lives, that whole thing. That's how talking is not my strong suit today. Why am I trying to record these videos? This is terrible. I feel like time is getting away from me like sand in one of those things, and that I just hear the days of our lives in the background. And I feel a little Groundhog's Day in my life, but then it's just, yeah, I don't know. I'm 33 already. Like, what the fuck? I feel like I was 26 yesterday. I don't understand what's going on. I feel old. Okay, let's jump into your horoscope. So it's Cancer season. We're still in Cancer season. We entered Cancer season last month. Cancer energy is a little hard for Aries in the sense that it's cardinal water, and Aries, you are cardinal fire. And so you guys swear each other. You make a tense aspect. And Aries, being cardinal fire tends to be a lot more driven, passionate, focused, reactive, in these kind of more externalized ways. And Cancer can also be that way, but it's more internalized. It's more of the emotional realm. It has to do with more of this kind of like, initiatory energy when it comes to feelings and nurturing and intuition, things like that. I'm not saying that Aries doesn't have those capabilities, but just in terms of the archetypes of the signs, they express themselves differently in that way. And so some of the things that are beneficial for Aries during Cancer season to maybe learn from Cancer or lean into is how do you kind of take this cardinal energy and turn it inwards? How do you focus on your self-care and your feelings versus your externalized focus that you normally have? How do you work on communicating your feelings? How do you work on being more vulnerable? Maybe nurturing yourself and doing things that create more of a sense of comfort and ease that Cancer tends to be good at leaning into, where Aries has a harder time with. Those are themes that come up for you quite a bit because, in the Aries horoscope, all of the signs are in their proper house placement. So the area that this is hitting for the Aries horoscope does have to do with the Cancer themes, home and family, and our ability to kind of lean into self-care and, kind of this more introverted, introspective time. So having, the first day of the month in July, we have this conjunction between the Sun and Mercury in Cancer, which is called the Cazimi. We also have Juno, the asteroid, in Cancer, and it's all happening in that area that, represents more of your relationship to your home, your family. Your family can mean many things. It could mean your actual family, but it could also mean the family that you've cultivated in the home that you have, whether that's your own children and marital partner. Sometimes our chosen family that we have could be impacted. I honestly, I know the sixth house tends to be more, relevant for pets, but for me, like, I'm not planning on having kids. And so I tend to associate my family with my fur children. That's my family. So, I think that there's a large theme for Aries in whatever your relationship to home and family is for you. There's also reflections on how you are using your time in a more introspective or introverted way, and whether or not you're focusing on nurturing and self-care actively. Mercury here, I think, lends itself to help you maybe focus on ways that you need to refill your cup and kind of be more intentional about self-care practices, if that makes sense. Also, the way you communicate with people that you cohabitate with, or even family members, could be a theme for you at the beginning of July. Starting out July, we also have Venus and Mars together in Leo, and they're pretty close. They're conjunct, not exact, but pretty close together. And so the area that this is hitting for the Aries horoscope has to do with your creative self-expression. How do you share yourself with others? How do you share yourself with, I want to say the world in the sense that Leo is very much about sharing itself with the world in terms of whatever it's doing. But there are a lot of introverted Leos out there, you know, where it's like the world maybe is a smaller group. It doesn't necessarily have to be like you're famous and everybody knows what you're doing, but it can also just be the community that you're a part of. You know, how do you share yourself with the community that you're a part of? Leo is also a very romantic energy and a passionate energy. And so you might be feeling like those themes are more elevated for you at the start of July. Like maybe you're seeking more of that connection, that romance, that passion for life. That's a big theme. We have a lot in Leo besides just Venus and Mars. We also have Pallas Athena in Leo, and we have Lilith in Leo. And so we have this little Leo stellium going on that's really activating creative energy, creative self-expressive expressive energy. I'm having such a hard time talking today. This is my second attempt to record this video. And then when I was doing the July astrology forecast video, I think I had to record it twice before I kind of got going. So if this is painstaking to listen to, I apologize in advance. So intense. We also have Jupiter in Taurus still. So Jupiter is hitting the area of the chart for the Aries horoscope that has to do with your finances, your money, your resources. Jupiter blesses this area. So your financial, you know, area is getting a big blessing from Jupiter. So that's going to be there the rest of the year. So congrats to you. That's awesome. Saturn's retrograde now in Pisces. The area that's hitting in the horoscope is the same that we talked about last month. It's the area that has to do with the subconscious. I'm not going to get into outer planets for the horoscopes. We're just going to stick to the more personal planets. So that's kind of where we're at for the month. You know, all the outer planets are still doing pretty much the same thing outside of the retrograde. Neptune and Pluto are now retrograde. So Pluto's back in Capricorn. Neptune's retrograde in Pisces. So, you know, that's where we're at there. I think the outer planets too are more interesting to look at from like a personalized perspective when it comes to your own natal chart. For horoscopes, I'm not, you know, that into talking about them because it's such a long transit that's not going anywhere really. If you want a further breakdown on the transits for the month, I cover that in the July forecast, but for the personalized horoscopes, we're going to leave them out. So July 3rd, we have a full moon happening. And so let's go ahead and talk about where that's hitting for you, Aries. So we're going to have a full moon at 11 degrees of Capricorn. And the area that impacts for you is the area of your career. You know, it is what you're doing out in the world in terms of the work that you do and how you are expressing yourself in the work that you do, especially having so much energy in the sign of Leo and in the area of the chart that has to do with creative self-expression. Full moons are a time of manifesting, you know, setting intentions towards things that we want to manifest, and also a time of releasing and kind of, you know, what are we shedding during this time. And, you know, so you might be reflecting a lot on your career. You might be reflecting a lot on what you're doing in the world and how you're accomplishing the goals that you are driven towards for the future. And so with July 3rd, it's a really positive time for you to set intentions towards the things that you want to manifest when it comes to the work that you're doing. So that'll be interesting to kind of see how that's impacting you. It's also trining Jupiter. So again, there's some positive energy here when it comes to manifesting more business or more money at your job. If you're trying to get a promotion and that's something that you want to set intentions towards, that's actually pretty positive for you. So those are things that, you know, you might be inclined to want to think about. The other thing too about having so much energy in Leo, like Venus and Mars, if you're a later degree Aries, so if your sun or rising placement is within the 19 to 29 degrees of Aries, all this Mars, Pallas Athena, and Venus energy is going to be making a trine to you over the first part of this month, and Venus for the whole month. And so that also elevates your ability to kind of push forward and level up in your life the way that you want to. So there's a lot of like passion and drive for Aries over the summer. The only thing that you have to be kind of mindful of is to not overdo it. There's a lot of energy and potential for you to overdo and kind of push yourself past your limits. And there's a lot of potential with Mars here for you to get really short-tempered and irritable and reactive. So those are things that you just have to be mindful of. I think that's stuff that Aries, being a Mars dominant sign and a fire sign, tends to have to be mindful of regardless, but it's definitely elevated. The potential for burnout is high. And when I think about all of my Aries people in my life, that tracks usually for them. So I feel like nothing new, but it's a lot. You're going to have a very active summer, it seems like, Aries. So once we kind of move on through the rest of the month, some of the other transits. So when I went through the July forecast and I looked at every single week and every day of transit that we had, there's kind of this common theme between Pisces and Leo that is happening, because we have Neptune and Saturn in Pisces, and then we have Venus and Mars, Pallas Athena and Lilith all in Leo, and they are all kind of making, and then we have the Sun in Cancer and Mercury in Cancer. So we've got like the Sun, Mercury, Cancer stuff making trines to the Saturn, Neptune, Pisces stuff. And then we have this in conjunct that keeps happening between Venus, Mars, Pallas Athena, and then Saturn and Neptune. And so there's this Leo Pisces in conjunct energy that keeps happening. And so instead of me going through and talking about every little day that that's happening, because I just did that in the July forecast, I just want to talk about the frequency of Venus. I'm sorry, not Venus, but of Leo and Pisces in conjunct. And I feel like I'm a really good person to speak to this because it's something that I have natally. So I am Sun in Leo in conjunct a moon in Pisces. And so my energy is very much this. So the fact that we're all experiencing this in conjunct frequency between these planets over the course of July is interesting to me. So the area that this is affecting Aries is the house of creative expression. So creative self-expression, the Leo house has to do with how we connect to children, our inner child. And when I talk about inner child, I'm talking about that like inner youthful part of us. Not necessarily the traumatized child that's inside of us, but that can be there too. The inner child is multifaceted. It's like there's a trauma child, and then there's also the playful child. That area is being activated by all of this stellium energy in Leo. And then that's making this hard aspect over the course of July to these Saturn, Neptune, Pisces placements. And those placements are in the area that rules the subconscious. And so in conjuncts, the aspect in conjunct is a hard aspect that requires us to lean into our creative abilities to empower us to work past the tension, right? So if we're trying to make something happen in life, we might experience some tension around how to get moving forward on those things. There might be some obstacles. We might feel kind of like, we need to figure some things out before it's smooth sailing. And sometimes that can deter us from wanting to move forward. Sometimes it just adds to the fun of trying to make it happen. And so that's kind of what's happening throughout all of July for all of us. There's this dream or this vision of the future that we have that we want to move towards. Leo and Aries are very determined to get what we want. Like that's a very fire sign thing. This is what I want. How do I make it happen? Pisces is very much about the fantasy and the dream, so Leo might have more of the desire, and Leo likes to romanticize and fantasize, and so does Pisces. They're very like interesting. It's so interesting how different these signs are, but when they're together, there's so many similar crossovers. It's very interesting to kind of watch. And so essentially there might be a lot of dreaming happening. You might be, and dreaming in like a literal sense, like when you go to sleep at night, but also dreaming in just the like fantasy sense of like, what do I want my life to be? What's the big goal? What's the big fantasy? And then when you have fire energy in your chart, like Aries, there's this inability to be patient on the process. It's like, how do I make this happen as soon as possible? And it can get very impatient, especially when you have Mars elevating all of that, which is happening. But the beneficial part of it, the part of it that I, being somebody that has this natally, is that if you're somebody that's going through this, you actually do have a lot of potential to get what you want and to envision kind of, the dream or the goal of the life that you want. But I think that it can also be really, really ungrounding if you don't have something to anchor you back into the here and now and the reality. And I talk about this in the July forecast, where there's, this emphasis often on the peak, like the end goal, but we often don't think about all of the parts to get there, or the aftermath. Like, what do we do once we're there? And so one of the things that I think happens with a lot of fire signs is that we tend to go for the gold and think about the details later. And then once we're having to work through the details, there's a lot of like, oh, like I didn't think about that, or maybe I don't want this anymore, And so we run this risk in July to overshoot and to over fantasize and to over conceptualize potential without actually thinking about the reality or the nitty gritty until later. So once we get past some of these beginning transits, these inconjuncts to this, we're going to move into a period later on where we start to get a little more realistic. It starts a little earlier. So, we start out with this Cancer energy still, and then by the 11th, I got to make sure I'm getting these dates right, because the way that the universal ephemeris is a little bit different than how it plays out for us in the States, time wise. So Mercury is going to be entering Leo. Let's see here, on the 11th. Okay, so that's right. So Mercury is going to be leaving the Cancer party and entering Leo, and getting into that area that has to do with that self-expression, kind of that boost of confidence, so we're already kind of in that, and then Mercury comes and joins that party, and also, kind of reignites our ability to like go after what we want, express what we want. It emphasizes a little bit more too of that reactive energy that Leo can have. Leo can be very prideful and arrogant, in communication. I'm guilty of that for sure, even though I don't have Mercury in Leo. So that's stuff, with Mercury and Leo that, especially since it's trining Aries, you have to watch out for, because there's a lot of potential for foot in the mouth kind of situations. Mars around the same time is going to be entering Virgo. So we're going to have Mars entering Virgo on the 10th. Mercury actually enters Leo on the same day Pacific time. So it just depends kind of on where you're at. But basically the 10th, we're kind of shifting out of Cancer energy quite a bit, and then Mars leaves Leo. And the thing that I like about Mars leaving Leo is, even though I don't mind Mars in Leo, like it's definitely a good energy in terms of driving a lot of our creative projects and passions forward. It's good for boosting confidence. But I talked about this in the July forecast. It's got a very, 5 of Wands energy that can be very competitive, aggressive. And I personally, like, I'm not a huge fan of this type of energy. I think it's fun if I'm playing a board game. If I'm playing a board game, I love this energy. But in life, if I'm dealing with this, I'm just like, get out of here. Like, I don't want to deal with this weird shit, this rat race bullshit. It annoys me. And so I feel like, Mars leaving Leo and entering Virgo, I have Mars in Virgo natally. It's going to be my Mars return. I like it because it grounds you a little bit more into what's practical. So once Mercury enters Leo, I also like that better, because Mercury in Leo is a little bit more just like expressive communication wise. Like it to me, it's more fun and playful. And I feel like Mars in Virgo is great at like applying things in a more practical, way. And the area that Mars is going to be in for the Aries horoscope is the area that has to do with your health. And so Mars passing through this area, it's really important that you care about, your bandwidth, like don't burn yourself out, but it's also really positive for getting into, a new routine with your health. So if you haven't really been taking good care of yourself and you're like, I really need to get on it, Mars here could be really beneficial for you in that way. You need to be really mindful with what you're eating and, kind of the way that you're taking care of what you're putting in your body. That's really important with Mars here. Pallas Athena is also entering Virgo with this too. So again, this is a really good time to get on a good routine for yourself that sets yourself up for success with your health, exercise, all that kind of stuff. If you've been thinking about doing some kind of detox or cleanse to get everything moving, well in your body, that could be something that you find really beneficial or positive, or even just, you know, more structure around your diet. If you've been kind of just like shoving stuff in your mouth that's not good for you, and you know that you need to rein that in and make more of a plan. Meal prepping, that kind of stuff is really supported for you with Mars and Pallas Athena in Virgo passing through the area of your health. Let's see, what else do we want to talk about? By the end of the month, we're going to have Mercury entering Virgo as well. So Mercury is really only going to be in Virgo for, it looks like a little over 2 weeks. So it's like 2.5 weeks-ish. Sorry, Mercury's only going to be in Leo that amount of time. And then when it enters Virgo, I believe on the 28th. So let's like make sure that date is right. Yeah, on the 28th, when Mercury enters Virgo, again, Mercury in Virgo is great. Mercury is the one of, you know, it rules Virgo and Gemini. And so Mercury is in domicile in Virgo, tongue twister and saying so many things. But it's going to be here, you know, for a while because it stations retrograde at the end of August. And so I'm excited about Mercury in Virgo because, you know, Mercury is the ruler of Virgo, but I'm nervous about it in the sense that it gets us closer to the retrograde. But hey, you know what? I would take a Mercury in Virgo retrograde because at least it's in domicile. At least this is like where it's meant to be. I feel like that's a little bit better than some of the other signs, you know. It's still, you know, rough, but that's not happening until August. Mercury retrograde's not till August. But prior to Mercury entering Virgo, we actually do have Venus stationing retrograde on the same day that the sun is going to be entering Leo. And then if we backtrack even more, we have our new moon in Cancer on the 17th, I believe. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So let's backtrack and talk about the new moon on the 17th. So we've got, it looks like 24 degrees is the degree point of this new moon in Cancer. And again, the area that this is hitting for the chart is where, you know, we have Cancer in the Aries horoscope, which is the area that Cancer traditionally rules. So it has to do with our home and family. And so if you are kind of in this place where you really need to, you know, kind of recharge and rejuvenate, and you have this like very active self-care day at home where you're just kind of filling your own cup, super supported on July 17th. If I were you, I would take that Monday off. I believe it's a Monday, which is also really cool because the moon is the ruler of Cancer and rules Monday. So we've got a new moon Monday in its sign, its home sign of Cancer, which I really like. Again, though, you know, Cancer, like I said, it squares Aries. So it might be hard because it's not necessarily what you want to do. Like maybe you really want to start Monday off with a bang, but it's not going to happen that way. It's this very introverted, feeling centered, you know, slow down energy. I say take July 17th off. I think that's smart. You know, what's interesting? My Aries friend is coming to visit me the next day, and we're having a spa couple of days. And I just realized it's right after this new moon. That's crazy. Wow. I didn't put all that together. It's very fun. It's too bad it's not happening right on the day of the new moon, though. I think we're meeting up the next day. Well, that worked out because I didn't even know what was going on astrologically, and it just happened that way. So that's the new moon. And then on the 23rd, we're going to have the sun move into Leo. It's Leo season. Hurrah. It's very, Aries and Leo are the most compatible signs for each other, So like, you know, if you ask, if you're an Aries and you're like, what's my most compatible sign in the zodiac? It's Leo. And I'm married to an Aries. I'm a Leo that's married to an Aries. And my birthday twin, Analisa Kelly, who's an astrologer, we're both born on August 18th, 1989. And her husband is also an Aries. And her husband's birthday is the day before my husband's birthday, which is really odd. And then my friend who's coming to visit me that I was just talking about, she's an Aries and her boyfriend is a Leo. And it's a very compatible energy because it's fire and fire. It's cardinal fire and fixed fire, and it makes a trine to each other. Fire likes fire. Sagittarius is also very compatible with Aries and Leo for that reason, you know, fire likes fire. So Leo season, you know, again, it amplifies Aries energy because of that trine. We already have so much energy in Leo that's amplifying Aries that it's not, you know, like we haven't already been under that influence, but having the sun come into Leo, you know, brings even more of that frequency. And also the sun is the ruler of Leo. So the sun is now in domicile. It's back in its home sign. So I think that you know, there's a lot of people who really love Leo energy who aren't Leos. And I think that's why, is because it's where the sun is the most happy. There was a Libra astrologer on TikTok who's an older woman that I've never heard of before that made this really funny video that was like the most annoying, the signs by most annoying, like in order. And Leo, she put as number one as the most annoying. And I just thought it was so ironic that a Libra made that video, because I feel like a lot of my Libra friends that I have who I love and adore, I love Libra, but I also feel like they have some of the most annoying tendencies to me. And I was like, oh, are we just annoying the shit out of each other all the time? I thought it was really funny because Leo and Libra are also very compatible, but Libra is the opposite of Aries, which puts more tension between Aries and Libra. But I also know a lot of Aries Libra combo people. I don't know why I got off on that tangent, but just talking about, you know, the sun being where it's meant to be and a lot of people being drawn to Leo energy. I think that could be why. So that's happening on the 23rd. And then Venus is also stationing retrograde in Leo, where she will be retrograde until October. I'm sorry, until September, till the beginning of September. And then she'll finish her way through Leo and station direct in October. So we're entering that Venus retrograde cycle, and where that's hitting in the chart is that area that has to do with self-expression. And, you know, Aries represents the identity and the relationship to self. You know, it rules the first house, and the planet is Mars. It's all about like initiating the will, initiating the self. And Leo is in the quadrant that has to do with our interpersonal relationships to life. And so when we move from Aries to Leo, it's not so much about the self anymore. It's about, how do I share the self? I kind of feel like Aries has more to do with selfhood. Like, this is who I am. This is what I want. This is my relationship to that. And then when we get to Leo, it's, this is who I am. This is what I want, but I want to share that with everybody. I want to give that. I want people to see that and validate it. And I want to feel this kind of connection with others about it. And Leo gets kind of this rap for being selfish. I don't think Leo is selfish. I think Leo is self-oriented and wants to be of use or of worthiness to others. And that comes off as selfish because of how important that is to a Leo individual. Whereas Aries ruling the self tends to be the more self-oriented sign, because it's not about others. It's not about sharing with others. It's about, this is me, this is my world. I don't care if you're in it. That's selfish to me. Leo, though, I think can come off as very selfish because the identity and that expression is of value. It's very important to Leo, more than other people might value it, right? So Leo gets easily offended often when other people don't value their selfhood as much as they're valuing it. But nobody's going to value your selfhood as much as you, right? Like that's just, people don't care about you as much as you want them to. That's just not how that works. That's why Leo needs fans, you know, a lot of times, because Leo is like, but I want you to care about me too. And I want to care about you. I want to know everything about you. I want to connect with you in this way. Like, that's a very common thing for Leo. So having this retrograde, this Venus retrograde here for the Aries chart, those themes come up for Aries, but, you know, in an Aries way. So how do you express yourself? How do you share yourself? What's your relationship to your creativity? What's your relationship to passion? How do you find joy? How do you not take yourself so seriously? Those are themes for Aries in this place. And how do you have fun? How do you play? How do you create more of that playful, fun kind of energy in your life? And so I think that the Venus retrograde might bring up maybe some of the areas where you're lacking those things. Maybe there's some insecurities around how you're putting yourself out there, and maybe there's some obstacles that you have to overcome in order to take yourself to that next place that you want to take yourself in life. And, you know, maybe Aries, if you are one of those Aries that has Leo in your life, you can learn something from, you know, the Leo people that you enjoy. There's obviously a reason why you're drawn to that energy, and maybe that's something that you're, you know, learning from, is like how to become more confident in self-expression and that kind of, you know, journey of self in terms of the next stage of sharing it. trying to think if there's anything else I want to say about that that's not redundant. I've already said a lot of redundant stuff, so maybe that's a good place to end for the Aries horoscope. So kind of recapping, because I think that it feels a little mushy to me to just end it there, but I would say that July is going to be a period where there's a lot of determination to go after the things that you want. It's going to start out very dreamy and very ungrounded. It's going to end in a more strategic place. You might still be in dreamland and fantasyland, but you're going to have more of an ability to strategize with Mars and Mercury in Virgo. And then once Venus is retrograde, you might be in a position where you really have to overcome your fears around self-expression and confidence. Like, what's holding you back? Why is it holding you back? How do you push forward and go forth and put yourself out there? So layers, layers of an onion. Maybe in the past there was times where you had that confidence and it wavers and changes. There's, we go through like introspective times and extroverted times, and I think there's a little bit of both happening for Aries. You're going to start out more introspective, and then you're going to end a little bit more like, let's get it done. So that's your horoscope. I'm just going to apologize in advance for how all over the place I feel right now. I just don't know if I'm ever going to not feel that way, like every time I sit down to do these videos, I feel that way. So it just is what it is. But, hey, I'm excited for July. I think it's going to be a good month, even if it's a little emotional and ungrounded. And I hope we all have fun during Leo season. And I wish you all the best of luck, and I will see you next month.